For Pack basketball, it's 2 out the door and 1 back in. I guess it's time for Keatts to get back to where he's comfortable, in the kitchen.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's Wednesday sponsor is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, as always, apply. Happy Wednesday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. Kenton, we got a little bit of unusual news from NC State basketball earlier in the week. Forwards for NC State basketball, MJ Rice and Ernest Ross, were both reportedly leaving the program. Kind of a very abrupt type of move, especially since the deadline for the transfer portal has passed. Very peculiar situations for the both of them. Obviously, you have MJ Rice, who was arguably the premier transfer portal commit of last season. Waited a while to get him actually onto the court after some off-court issues, I guess we'll call it there. Finally got him onto the court and just didn't really look like the MJ Rice that we had been advertised coming over from Kansas. After redshirting and sitting the rest of the year, then the question immediately raises, are we going to see him again next year? As I mentioned, the transfer portal deadline passes, so one would assume that he would remain with NC State. Saw a couple videos on Twitter from getting some warm-ups in. Looked pretty decent there, although warm-ups are just warm-ups. And now here at the end of June, he's packing his bags and he's leaving the NC State basketball program. What do you make of MJ Rice's departure here?
It is confusing and perplexing to some extent. And also, I hate to say it, but do we have an MJ curse going on at NC State or something?
What's
happening here? What's happening here? You know, this is the second time that we've seen a highly touted MJ that everybody thought like, hey, this is the next one up. This is the next big time guy coming along. Red shirt in the middle of the season, and then they're out the door.
Then offered the illusion that they would not be leaving, and then ultimately.
Right. Yeah, this is just such a disappointing thing because you and I both talked about this, and we believed it even still going into this year, that MJ Rice is an X-Factor type of guy. There is no if, ands, or buts about it. There is no denying that. Anybody telling you that with what we knew about him and what we saw really, because if you go back to watch the first game that he played in the very limited minutes that he had, you went from that super exciting debut where he had more points than he did minutes, I believe. And then it was just like, oh, well, that's it. That's all. It's worse than getting a free trial to your favorite streaming service, and it just cuts off out of nowhere. And now you got to use your other email. Not saying that Grayson or I do this because we're good guys who follow. We would never. But, you know, it's that type of situation. And you know, seeing MJ go, he's a real person, right? So obviously we wish him the best. We hope that he gets everything right mentally and physically. And, you know, we hope that he finds success wherever he lands. But it's really disheartening to see this coming off of a very successful season where you felt like you're starting to feel like Keatts is building something year over year over year, because we look at last year going to the tournament and getting eliminated round one, but at least you went, and you had a guy that got drafted into Quavion. And then this year you take it all the way to the Final Four, you win an ACC championship, all those things, and you feel like we're sustaining momentum at this point. This is a blow to that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously on the court, we all had very lofty expectations for MJ Rice. Him coming over to State from the transfer portal, it kind of felt like getting a 5-star player. I mean, he was a 5-star player coming out of high school, McDonald's All-American. I was over the moon excited when this guy announced that he was going to come home and play for State. I believe the words I used were a program-changing commit. Now, obviously did not end up being the case, and so that is where the human element comes into play. That's what we've talked about several times on this program in regards to MJ Rice. Clearly, there is something going on with MJ Rice off the court, personal. That is what needs to be handled before anything else.
Yeah.
If MJ is not MJ, that needs to take precedence over literally anything else. Even school, basketball, anything else. He has to do everything he can to get himself right first. And so It does come at the expense of losing a player on this roster, but the only real concern here is that MJ Rice is okay, and if he will be okay moving forward. So we certainly wish him nothing but the best. It is a shame that he is leaving NC State. We all had, like I said, very lofty expectations for him, but at the end of the day, he's got to get right with MJ Rice first, and so that is what's most important here. Now shifting over to Ernest Ross, another very peculiar situation in kind of a different direction. A clear fan favorite, has been for a couple seasons, but really elevated that status this past season. Became kind of a postseason folk hero with his off-the-court antics involving Jim Boeheim. Took that all the way to the Final Four. We all love Ern. After this season had ended, there was an original report that he'd be entering the transfer portal. All of a sudden, that was proven false. Couple weeks go by. Now he is in the portal. He's leaving NC State, so it was a very bittersweet goodbye. Couple more weeks pass. He commits to UTSA, I believe, the Roadrunners. And then a couple more weeks go by. We never see any word of a decommitment, but all of a sudden he's returning to NC State. We're like, okay, well, we do need a depth piece with size. We do need someone that you can plug in time of need, maybe foul trouble, whatever it may be. Obviously, he's familiar with the team, familiar with the coaching staff, fan favorite. Okay, this feels like a great fit. For him to now leave a second time in just a couple of months here, very strange situation. And like I mentioned, the key here, after the transfer portal deadline has passed. That's one of the main talking points, I think, here with Ernest Ross, because what exactly is he going to do now? I would have to imagine he'll require a waiver to be eligible to play anywhere next season. I think not only just D1, but like any level of NCAA athletics, he's going to have to require a waiver. So, I mean, I guess we're going to have to wish him another bittersweet goodbye. I feel like we kind of covered our bases the first time, but I really don't know what to make of the situation. It's very odd. Another guy, certainly wish him nothing but the best, but for Keatts, he's going to have to go back in the portal or maybe even into the overtime elite. Obviously, we're going to talk about his new addition here in just a couple minutes, but as everyone likes to say online, the coaches, when it comes to scholarships, they know how to count. And we do have one more spot here now that Ernest is leaving us as well.
I'm going to say something, and please don't make this viral, friends, but this needs to be said.
Oh, God.
I'm not doing this. You put your right foot in, you put your left foot out, you put your right foot in, and then we're not doing the hokey pokey on whether or not you want to be here in the red and white. Either you do or you don't. Either you do or you don't, period. Coach Keatts was more than gracious to allow the door to be opened back up after you commit somewhere else. I'm sorry to tell you, after I give you that green light to, hey, we want you on the team, we want you back, whatever the case may be, and then you say, hey, I'm leaving one time, even if I don't give you the green light to come back. If I say I don't want you and you decide to leave, that's just that. That's just that. Somebody here is not moving appropriately, and I would hope that it's not the team in giving Ernest that, hey, we want you back, LOL, JK, no, we don't. Because I'm not going to lie and say that I've kept much attention to this particular situation, because honestly, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, in my opinion. It's just not. It's good if he comes back, fine if he doesn't. I just don't think it's worth it. You know, if you want to feed me the nuggets about that, cool. I'm not going to ask. That's just the reality. So with that in mind, I mean, hey, more power to you. More power to him wherever he goes. I hope his waiver gets approved, whatever the case may be. But again, I am a avid hater of the, well, will he stay? Will he go? Yes. Picking dandelions. He loves me not. He loves me. Forget all that. Either you're here and you're locked in, or you're somewhere else. And I'm okay if you're somewhere else. I'm okay if you're here. Let me know exactly where you are so I know how to move from there. I hope, it is my sincerest hope, number one, Ernest Ross finds success wherever he goes. Number two, NC State finds a suitable replacement for that scholarship. Number three, that this is the end of this damn saga. Hopefully this is the final installment. This feels like when Rocky fought Tommy Gunn. Enough. Reboot it years later or something, but enough of this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to speculate the reasons why for this decision here. I would imagine maybe it was a mutual decision, but I won't go too much further on that. Respectfully, though, and I do mean this respectfully, on the court for NC State, I don't know how much this changes, because it's not exactly that you're losing two guys that had a profound impact on everything that went down this past season. And so yes, it is bittersweet to see them go, but on the court, I just don't know how much that changes from this year going into next year, especially with the expectations of all the new guys coming in. So it kind of is what it is. Very, very odd situation for the two of them, but MJ Rice and Ernest Ross are both moving on from the NC State basketball program. There's one more scholarship left. We will now have to wait and see how Kevin Keatts decides to use it. Coming up next, there was actually another addition to this equation. We'll discuss that after a quick word from our sponsors. Our sponsor for today is Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. And guess what? Now that it's summer, Major League Baseball is really all we got. And that makes getting tickets even faster and easier on Gametime. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it, all on an app that is very, very easy to use. Toggling their all-in pricing feature will show your total upfront with zero surprises at checkout, and you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets this summer with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. And again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Middle portion of our Wednesday show. Now time to discuss the new addition to NC State basketball. There was an addition to this very complicated equation earlier this week. French-Canadian Ismail Diouf. I hope I didn't butcher that, but I think I got it right. He's 6'9". He's a power forward from Laval University in Canada. He averaged 10.1 points and 6.2 rebounds a game in 23 and a half minutes this past season. He's joining NC State. He's eligible immediately, and he could potentially be here for 2 years. Kenton, you actually had word of this a couple days before it happened. What do you make now that it's a done deal?
Well, number one, I'm glad that I can finally talk about it on air. But number two, this is a situation where this young man is, we talked a lot about needing a depth piece in terms of front court and all that. They're all so good. Who's going to be the depth piece? Who's going to be the guy that you see in the back seat here? Because you want to say off bat, you'd most likely think, oh, Diouf is going to be the depth piece. But then you take a little bit deeper of a look. You take a little bit longer of a thought and you say, how much better would Middlebrooks and Huntley Hatfield be than Diouf and some of the things that he offers? How much could you really say, hey, there's a definitive edge in this way by not playing Diouf big minutes right away? It kind of gives you that thought. And so you're left with a situation that I think is good where you have too many options that are viable ACC big men, because I don't think that he's a guy that's a frail little guy that's going to get bullied down there. I don't think he's a guy with poor anticipation that he's very big, but he's not going to play very big in terms of the boards or in terms of defensively around the rim. So, I really want to see what Diouf can do, but more importantly, I want to see what the front court looks like overall in terms of our bigs, because again, we are starting to get in some guys and starting to kind of cement what that front court is going to look like.
Yeah, as far as his fit onto the team, to be honest, I'm still kind of unsure. Before all of the situation happened with MJ Rice and Ernest Ross, there was still an understanding that NC State would be going after another depth piece before the roster was finalized. Now, we didn't know that we would actually get one and then lose two, but nonetheless, we do have another interesting depth piece for that front court because we really needed one. He's 6'9" and he's 215. So, in my mind, maybe he's a little bit light in the behind, as Kenton likes to say, but nonetheless, he fills a very specific need that this roster had to have. You needed the length that you could throw into the front court at a time of need, and he provides that at 6'9". He can score a little bit. I've seen very limited tape. Again, I just don't quite know where he will fit into the rotation this year. And as of right now, that's okay. A small detail that I did notice, however, is that NC State, quote unquote, won this battle over Michigan, Tennessee, and West Virginia, including some other ones. Now, those three names are very prominent names in the college basketball world. So that would tell me they see something as well. And so if NC State is winning that battle, there's some kind of use that they believe that they can get out of Ishmael Diouf. That provides at least a little bit of optimism. And then you get to that other point where I mentioned we still have one more scholarship. Now, what will Keatts decide to do with that? If it's the same Kevin Keatts that we've experienced these last couple of years, he will use that roster spot probably in a very timely fashion. If there's one thing, we've said this throughout his tenure, if there's one thing Keatts is going to do, he's going to go out there and recruit, and he's going to bring a new face to NC State. So before the summer is over, I fully expect that to happen. But until then, Ishmael Diouf, like I mentioned, he fills a very specific need. He gives you that length in the front court. And if nothing else, that's extremely important to this team.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, when you talk about the pecking order of what we need versus what we have, I believe that backcourt-wise, fully sold up. We have almost every role you can imagine for the backcourt sold up. But front court-wise, it's so interesting because we don't know who's going to play these different roles.
Yeah.
We don't know what – and Diouf is kind of an interesting prospect because you can project what his skill set is going to be, but you don't know what his skill set is going to be up against other ACC level guys and all that. And so you're kind of left with who's going to kind of slide into what roles, who's going to be the stretch big, who's going to be the energy big, who's going to be – do we have a bunch of energy bigs in those stretch guys? Do we have a guy that's going to be the new DJ Burns per se? Maybe not in terms of the charisma and all that, but your post scorer that you can go to. You know, you're left with tons of questions like that, and it would be very interesting to see who steps up to answer the bell.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to get on here and pretend I know a single thing about the league that he was playing in Canada. Canada is not known to be a basketball powerhouse for anyone just learning the sport, so I don't know. I'm not saying that he won't be any good, but I'm not going to say he's going to be a superstar either. I think it's just very soon to be able to project what he will or will not do here at State. So
if you told me a big forward from Canada was joining the Ice Pack, I'd be a lot more intrigued. No, I'm just joking. But seriously, you know, it is a moment where you kind of look up and, like you said, not much about the Canadian League is known.
Yeah. I fully expect Middlebrooks and Huntley Hatfield to lead the pack in the front court. That was a horrible pun, but it fits the bill here. They're gonna see the bulk of the minutes in the front court. I really don't think there's any question about that. So Diouf here, he will be tasked with being a role player, with being that very important depth piece that we saw you had to have once you get deep into the postseason. Every minute from anyone that comes in matters. And if nothing else for right now, that's plenty of reason for excitement. Coming up next, we're going to round out our Wednesday show with a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple of minutes of our Wednesday show. Now time for a whole lot of nothing or a whole lot of something. 3 topics. We'll tell you exactly where we stand on them. First one here. NC State football, in addition to several other college football teams, will be using in-helmet communications this season. Much like the NFL, helmets of, I believe, the quarterback and middle linebacker will have an in-helmet radio for communications between the player and the coaching staff. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
Whole lot of nothing. I mean, with all due respect, we haven't had any sign stealing debacles or controversies in the ACC. I don't think that there's a ton to be made of this as it stands right now. And, you know, it's only pre-play, so whole lot of nothing in my opinion.
I agree. I really, on the surface, I just don't think this changes much. I mean, it really only takes away the player turning his head and looking at a variety of signs to decipher what play or what adjustment needs to be made. So instead of all that, they're just getting it right in their ear hole. So not much difference there. What I will be interested to see is if it goes a little bit further than that. If you do have coaches providing maybe advice over the radio, I'd have to imagine that's where it'll get extremely dicey. You may see some violations listed on that type of thing, but who knows? I have to imagine introducing technology in this fashion, it opens up the door for several other possibilities. But just football terms, I don't think this really changes much. So I agree with you. Whole lot of nothing. Second one here. The Learfield Directors Cup final ranking, NC State clocks in at number 21. Whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
I would say a whole lot of something, but a whole lot more of something than many people realize, because NC State is at a bit of a handicap in the Directors Cup because we don't participate in certain sports that factor into the Directors Cup. There are multiple sports, and I'm not just talking about the sports that we're not good at. That's a whole separate conversation. But if you were to, say, hey, you can only have your best, I believe we participated in, I want to say it was 20 or 22 overall, something like that. Your best 20 to 22, we would climb up the rankings significantly. However, there's a lot of sports that we don't participate in. So I'd say a whole lot of something in a way that people don't even realize.
Yeah, my answer is pretty much the same. It's a whole lot of something because it marks all of the success that NC State experienced across a variety of sports in this school year. Football, great. Both basketball's great. Baseball, great. Non-revenue such as, wrestling, great. Swimming, great. It was a banner year for NC State. So, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is our fourth consecutive top 25 finish in this Directors Cup ranking. But the other part of this, just like Kenton said, there are several other sports that we either don't excel at or don't even have here at NC State that all the top schools, and I'd say like the top 5, they do have. And I'm looking at like Stanford. Stanford wins like everything that you really never hear about, with all due respect.
Right.
Like they're elite in like golf. And they're
rowing and stuff like that.
Exactly, yes. NC State doesn't have the majority of that. We don't have lacrosse. We don't have field hockey, that type of thing. So for NC State to have a ranked finish, that is the most important takeaway here for the Wolfpack. Being in this top 25, it means that your program is excelling across the board. But being higher than this, it's hard to do when we don't have the advantage that all these other schools that have 30 to, I don't know, maybe even 40 sports at their institution. We can't compete in that fashion. So it's definitely a whole lot of something, but there is it comes with a grain of salt. Last one here. NC State football has the 10th best home record in the country since 2020. And the reason I bring this up, with the incoming college football video game coming out in just a couple weeks, they released their top 25 toughest places to play, and NC State was not on that list. So for both of these, whole lot of nothing, whole lot of something.
I would say a whole lot of nothing for both, because at the end of the day, I would say a whole lot of nothing for the NCAA ranking, but a whole lot of something for the home record. And let me tell you why. I have said this for a very long time. You will not find fans more passionate than NC State. And the way that I measure passion is not just, are your fans excited about the team? It's how do you as a fan react to meh? And what do I mean by meh? What the kids today would call mid, right? Like if you're not I'm not saying absolute terrible. No fan likes absolute terrible. No fan wants to show up for absolute terrible. Nobody's going to sell out their stadium when you're a terrible team. But when you're just a completely middle of the road team, what do your fans look like at that point in time? Now, people can make the argument of NC State fans leave at halftime and some of them don't come back. There is a legitimate argument there. However, the reality is, it's how many ACC coaches have been on record saying, I hate playing at NC State. It's just so difficult. It's so brutal. And it's not difficult and brutal because NC State is coming at you with a bunch of 5 stars. It's because the fans are insane. Wolfpack Nation is unruly. I remember there was some list from Tar Heels about things to do to survive Carter Finley, as if they were storming Normandy or something like that. So, that reality, giving your biggest rival that feeling, oh, man, and then you have the winning record at home to match that, that's big-time stuff. In terms of NCAA's football game, who cares? Like that stuff should be, if they're intelligent, it should be fluid, and it should update as the season goes along. And you could very easily see yourself creep right on up that ladder in no time.
Before I answer, I had completely forgotten about things to do to survive Carter Finley. How unbelievably both soft and lame you have to be to not only create that, but then put it where other people can see that you create. I mean,
they got soft chins over there in Chapel Hill. They got soft chins.
Really, really expect nothing less. Anyway, it's a whole lot of nothing for the college football top 25 ranking. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't expect them to give NC State any respect in this game. We kind of all know how that goes. It kind of is what it is. But for NC State to have the 10th best home record in the last 4 years, that's definitely a whole lot of something. Because not only is that something to be proud of and protecting the Carter, and that really does represent how good and passionate and loud, crazy this fan base is, because they make it such a raucous environment for teams to try and come in and get a win. The crazy part about this, too, is I can think of 2 games immediately that should not have been in the loss column. That was 2022 Boston College and then this past year, Louisville. 2 games you just really let slip away. And if you take both of those, that record now reads as 25-2. That would more than likely put you in like the top 5 best home records in the country in the last couple of years. So
without a doubt,
it's a testament to this fan base. It's a testament to the home football environment. I mean, like Kenton said, this fan base, we're going to show up. Whether you're 6-6 or hopefully 10-2 or maybe even better, we will be there. We're going to be loud. We're going to be wearing red, and we're going to fill that place out every single year. We have the reputation for that. And we're also going to tear it down to the tailgate lot before the game even happens. So we all know the passion that NC State really anything has. And having such an elite home record in the last couple of years, it reflects that all the way. So that's definitely a whole lot of something, but top 25 toughest places to play. We all know how hard it is for other teams to come into the Carter. Kenton mentioned it as well. Several other coaches have been on record saying how much they hate coming to Carter Finley because it's a raucous environment. Just ask Florida State how much fun they've had in Raleigh over the past 2 decades. Every time they come up here, we either beat them or it is a really close game all the way down to the wire. We make it extremely difficult for the Seminoles to come up here and take one from us. So them amongst many other schools, they have to hate coming over to Raleigh and playing the Wolfpack. Very special environment. We all know that, and we're going to continue to prove that both in the video game and on the actual field this coming fall. That'll do it for us here on Wednesday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you think about the departures of both MJ Rice and Ernest Ross. Tell us what you think about the addition of French-Canadian Ishmael Diouf and what he may or may not provide to this year's basketball team. Any other comments you have, get them down in the box. I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of those, and mash that subscribe button if you have not already. We're almost to 2,100, and then we're going to keep climbing after that. Thank you all so much. We're going to see you on Friday for Fan Friday, and until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.